When we think of long-running animated franchises that have captured an entire generation of cinema with princesses and fairy tales and talking animals, we often will think of The House of Mouse. Disney has been the biggest source for this type of content since our grandparents were watching cartoons, and the mention of movies like Lion King and Peter Pan usually bring a rush of childhood nostalgia to everyone from every generation. But then, in 2001, Dreamworks would release a film that would revolutionize animation while also making a cultural impact on movies forever.
Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me.
If you love animation, it's more than likely that you're a fan of at least one of the films in the iconic Shrek franchise. With jokes that are funny to kids and adults alike, and a cast of talented actors of all calibers to bring these CGI animated creatures to life, Shrek and his friends have dominated the zeitgeist for over 20 years, and for good reason. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Rewind. Before the likes of Shrek, Donkey, and Princess Fiona were traversing the land of far, far away, Shrek could be found in the pages of my favorite children's book. A book called Shrek that told the story of a lonely ogre who lived in a lonely swamp, written by William Steig. It was a simple picture book that didn't have much plot, but made for an easy read for a 5-year-old kid who just wanted to giggle at the messy and colorful drawings. But shortly after the book was released in 1990, talks of how to spin it into a movie began making their way through studios in Hollywood. But who could have guessed that a simple picture book could ignite one of the highest grossing and most beloved movie franchises of all time?
Really?
Really?
Oh.
So my friends, grab your trusty steed and look out for horny dragons, because we are about to dive into what the f you need to know about the Shrek franchise. Now, let's face it, we're all familiar with the titular big green baddie, or we wouldn't be here. These movies are a staple of pop culture for all ages, and some of these movies genuinely make me ugly laugh, like, a lot.
You think I can get you laugh?
It's the story of a lonely ogre who reluctantly embarks on a quest to save a princess from the tower she's being kept in. Of course, he's in over his head and he needs the help of a talking donkey, appropriately named Donkey, to aid him on his journey. Of course, adventure ensues and the good times begin to roll, but in order to understand this franchise, you need to meet the endlessly entertaining creatures that make up the saga. Shrek. You know him, you love him, and we will see lots of him. Let's move on. Donkey. He slays dragons, but not in the traditional sense. More like in the biblical sense. He's Shrek's BFF and partner in heroism, and played by Eddie Murphy. And also not fully based on an actual donkey. I think they used like a motion capture of a dog for most of this.
In case you haven't noticed, I'm a donkey, not a dog. If I was a dog, they'd call me dog, not donkey.
Princess Fiona. Cameron Diaz crushed this voice role as a damsel in distress turned ass-kicking wife to Shrek. Lord Farquaad. Good old John Lithgow plays an unlikable, power-hungry lord who is looking to marry a princess so he can be a king. I guess you could call him a short king.
Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?
Puss in Boots. Think Zorro meets an adorable orange cat who can slice you with his sword, yet steal your damn heart. He's also the only character in this universe to get his own spin-off movies. The Gingerbread Man. You know what, just play the clip for this one.
Well, she's married to the Muffin Man.
The Muffin Man?
The Muffin Man!
Fairy Godmother. I love Fairy Godmother. She's like a modern mafia don and serves as an unsuspecting villain who plots to separate Shrek and Fiona. Pinocchio. Probably the best take on this character, except for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. You feel me? And as with any of the franchises we cover, there are all sorts of other characters, like my dude Prince Charming, that you can discover for yourself when you watch the film.
And so on and so forth.
Okay, this is gonna be a big one, so let's get into the movies. starting the franchise off very strong with this downright iconic first film. The movie was so good that you probably associate this song more with Shrek than with the movie it was actually written for, Mystery Men, another brilliant movie. The setup is that Shrek is living a lonely life in a swamp where the villagers harass him on the regular. He thinks he's happy being left alone until this hilarious and scumbaggy Lord Farquaad character is presented with the opportunity to marry a beautiful princess.
Relax, my lord, because it's time for you to meet today's eligible bachelorettes.
All he has to do is rescue Fiona from a tower by traveling across the land, sneaking past a fire-breathing dragon, and returning her safely. The only problem is that he ain't about to do any of that himself. Instead, he holds tryouts seeking a knight that is worthy of the mission. But when Shrek accidentally enters and wins that tryout, he and Donkey are forced to go on the journey and return Fiona to Farquaad. Now Shrek is only in it to convince Farquaad to let him keep his swamp, but along the way, he and Donkey develop an adorable companionship.
Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it.
Shrek and Donkey make it to Fiona's tower, where Donkey has to flirt his way out of being toasted by the dragon, and alas, a meme is born. After Shrek frees Fiona and the three of them narrowly escape, they must traverse the land back home so that Fiona, unaware that Shrek is an ogre at this point, can marry her prince.
The battle is won. You may remove your helmet, good Sir Knight.
No.
When Fiona finds out that Shrek is actually a hideous green monster, she's turned off. Because as it turns out, Fiona herself is an ogre, and she's cursed to only return to her true form upon gaining true love's first kiss. She thinks that that's Farquaad, but we're smarter than that, aren't we? Her and Shrek end up sharing that kiss, and Fiona is turned into her true self, an ogre.
I'm supposed to be beautiful.
But you are beautiful.
And of course, we get an incredible ending dance sequence, and as with all the movies, a killer modern day soundtrack. It gets me every time. 2004's Shrek 2 was one of the first animated films to reach anywhere close to $1 billion at the box office, with the exception, of course, of Toy Story 2. This movie adds a little more lore to the story and further engages in the satirical side of fairy tales. It's sort of a meet the parents situation as Shrek and Fiona, now happily in love and living as ogres in the swamp, travel to far, far away to spend some time with Fiona's human, or almost human, parents.
I only wanted what was best for Fiona.
This was a solid entry to the series, and maybe the funniest in the franchise. Rather than focusing on Shrek, this movie explores human characters like Prince Charming, Fiona's parents, and some townies from far, far away.
Excuse me, I'm looking for the ugly stepsister.
It feels like the scope of this movie is really expanded as well, with the land of Far, Far Away being somewhat of like a Beverly Hills stand-in, which adds to Shrek's increasingly uncomfortable state of mind. See, Shrek, Donkey, and Fiona live their lives in a swamp isolated from the rest of the world, and Shrek is happy that way. But Fiona's stuck-up and bougie family is concerned, and they're pushing her to marry Prince Charming to pursue the life that they think she deserves. Kinda like Owen Wilson in Meet the Parents, you know?
Shrek?
Aye, Fiona.
This is really a movie about the anxiety and discomfort of feeling like your partner's parents will think of you as not good enough for their child. It causes Shrek and Donkey to seek the help of Fairy Godmother, who is kinda like the Don Corleone of this franchise, and she turns Shrek and Donkey into more conventionally attractive characters.
I'm
gorgeous.
I'll say.
I'm Jill. What's your name?
Shrek.
The idea is that Shrek would do anything to make Fiona happy. But as it happens in these romantic comedy movies, there's a shocking lack of communication between Shrek and Fiona as they're both listening to others' opinions instead of following their hearts. Personally, I think of this movie as a cute rom-com style story that tugs at your heartstrings while also deepening the world and lore of the first movie. And it's this movie where Puss in Boots makes his grand entry to the series, and we all know how big of a win that will turn out to be for Dreamworks.
Heard. You think I am some kind of...
Fear me if you dare.
After everything from blackmail, secret meetings, a magic factory, and of course hilarious scenes of action and comedy from the likes of the Gingerbread Man, Pinocchio, and even the Big Bad Wolf, Shrek and Fiona remember why they truly love each other, and their inspirational commitment to each other brings another happy ever after. Well, not for everyone. Okay, my friends, here's where the franchise takes a bit of a swing and a miss for me. Third installments are always tricky, and very few trilogies see their third installment as being as good than the previous two. It's just the way it goes. Shrek the Third sees the return of Prince Charming as the movie's villain, and he and his crew of wicked fairy tale characters attempt to take the impending throne from Shrek.
Oh, quite necessary, Fiona.
I'm Shrek, you twit.
Now, in the first movie, Shrek is reluctantly partnered with Donkey, who becomes his best friend, and in the second movie, Shrek and Donkey partner up with Puss in Boots, and in this movie, Shrek befriends a young punk kid named Artie.
Me a king? I mean, I knew I came from royalty and all, but...
Artie is a kid who is maybe even less fit to be king than Shrek is. But Shrek doesn't want the throne, so he's gotta give it to somebody. And this guy is voiced by Justin Timberlake, so, you know, why not? Fiona is pregnant, and Shrek, Donkey, and Puss must return home to her. Now, here's why this movie doesn't quite work for me. While there's a wide range of fairy tale characters like Merlin, they don't do anything new with the story.
I knew I should have got that warranty.
It's mostly recycled bits from the previous movie, just reskinned and chucked into the third one. I think when you have two bold and wildly successful films already, the third installment should be a chance to go far beyond and truly commit to the bonkers adventure that these heroes go on. For example, instead of Shrek and Donkey turning themselves into a human and a white horse like they did in the last movie, they do kind of a Freaky Friday body swap, but it doesn't really go anywhere or add any new ideas to the mission at hand.
Oh no! I've been abracadabraed into a fancy feasting second-rate sidekick!
It kind of feels like by this point the writers were more focused on getting a third money-making installment out to the masses quickly, instead of giving the story time to breathe and reach a natural conclusion. But there is some amazing voice actors featured in this movie like John Krasinski, Seth Rogen, and Amy Poehler. I don't know, this movie just feels slightly empty for me, and upon my latest watch, it just felt like there wasn't enough plot to support the amount of new characters that are in here. It did kill at the box office though, but if you ask around, you'll probably hear from the masses that this is the most forgettable movie in the entire catalog. But that would not stop the director of this film, Chris Miller, from continuing to build out this world with a solo Puss in Boots film, which we will briefly discuss later in the video. This is where things get weirdly existential in the Shrek universe. This movie introduces Rumpelstiltskin as the villain, and for that, I am grateful. Rumpel is probably my favorite character in any fairy tale, and he definitely adds to the story more than he takes from it.
Rumpelstiltskin!
In this 2010 installment, Shrek is living a life he never knew he wanted. He and Fiona are still married and now have the addition of their 3 young children. Shrek is noticeably feeling a sense of anxiety about his new lifestyle. He's cracking under the pressure of parenthood and he just can't seem to get a minute to himself.
Playdate! Can I be there yet?
Shrek, the outhouse is clogged up!
And when his son's birthday approaches, so does Shrek's inevitable meltdown. So Shrek makes a deal with Rumpelstiltskin to give him back his old life as an isolated and lonely ogre. Rumpel is happy to make the deal, of course, and as is the case with all contracts made with this little devil, it doesn't work out the way you expect. In this new parallel dimension where Shrek is back to his old ways, everything else seems to have changed as well. Most notably, Rumpelstiltskin is the ruler of the land. So Shrek has to enlist the help of an old friend to help him defeat Rumpelstiltskin.
You've got a friend.
And the goal is to defeat Rumpel and get Shrek back to his family. This movie is honestly pretty good, and I've gotta praise it for being wildly different. And of course, Shrek makes it home and it is a happy ever after once again. Both of the Puss in Boots movies are good, but the second one in particular rules. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was a true surprise, as nobody could have predicted the maturity and deep themes wrapped in a fun adventure.
You want to see something cool?
And I love the animation, and I love the characters, and I love that I cried at the end. Alright my friends, now that you know the characters and the storyline, here is what we at JoBlo consider essential viewing. And this one is easy. Watch all of them. Except for Shrek 3. While some of these titles are much better than others, we think that each of them brings something to the table, and at the end of the day, it's f***ing Shrek, and who doesn't love that? And if you're feeling adventurous and you're in the mood for a good laugh, check out Shrek Retold, the full fan-made film here on YouTube by 3GI. I'm telling you guys, it's worth it.
Are you talking to me?
And that, my ogres, is what the f*** you need to know about the Shrek franchise.